we've had a long day, we've been out on spins all day, and we had 106 people out on bikes today, which is a huge number for our club. We have 175 members, which is one of the biggest clubs in the country. And it'll be probably an underestimate to say it's a very proud day for us that 150 years ago, the very first cycling club in this country was founded. And something even more significant is that it could arguably be the oldest club in the world, because there's very little information on the internet. If you go on and search, you'll find that there was a club founded in England in 1870, and they claim to be the oldest. So there's a huge significance of this building behind us here, Willow and Oak, where Richard Brennan was based, and we'll hear a bit more about that later on. But I just want to introduce the various people and they'll say a few words. The first person up I want to introduce is the Mayor, John Pratt.
Distinguished members and guests, ladies and gentlemen, and Councillor Gagan, I'm delighted to be here today in Grattan Square to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the founding of the first Irish cycling club. The plaque here celebrates the history and achievements of the Dungarvan Ramblers Cycling Club, which was established in 1869 by Richard Edward Brennan. He was a local cyclist, photographer and printer based in Grattan Square, and also in 1869 this club staged the very first cycling race in Ireland. Today we will enjoy a reenactment of part of that historic race which laid the foundations for this club's success. I wish the best of luck to the members of the Dungarvan Ramblers Cycling Club and the Old Velos Club racing from Dungarvan Mart to the Fraher Field on vintage bikes. With our Greenway, Waterford is a popular destination for those interested in cycling and a healthy lifestyle. We boast beautiful scenery and an infrastructure which supports and values the environment and the health and well-being of all. Nowhere in this is that more evident than in Dungarvan, with its status as a smarter travel town. It is a town which places great emphasis on health and environment. It is therefore apt that Dungarvan's home to the oldest cycling club in Ireland. I would like to congratulate you on the continued success of your club. Today the club boasts 170 members of all ages and abilities, where everyone can share the joy of cycling. I would like to take this opportunity to give special mention to the club officers and committee members who have worked tirelessly for the success of the cycling club. I hope everyone enjoys the festivities today, and I wish the club the best with all future endeavours, and Gormila Magif, and well done. Keep up the great work.
Just something that the Mayor and myself spoke about earlier was that hopefully before the end of the year that maybe there will be a plaque put in place here on the ground or somewhere to signify what the bike is about, because you pass it there and you say, wonder what that's about. Well, hopefully we might get something a little bit more significant to say, look, the first club in the country was founded here in 1869. So now, just to hear a bit more about Richard Edward Brennan, I'm going to ask William Whelan of Waterford County Museum to say a few words.
Thanks very much for the invite here today. I suppose I'll start off with just a short little observation of how we managed to get here today. Our history is not preserved accidentally. All along the way, someone has to go out of their way in order to preserve our history. And two people played a pretty big part in the story of Richard Edward Brennan being remembered. The first one was Father Columbus O'Donnell, who taught me history out in the Ferry many years ago. I wasn't one of his better pupils, but he made an important discovery in the back of the Ferry house, and it was the original cup. And he very kindly donated the original cup to Willie Frere. The story was then taken up by Willie. The vast majority of the history of Dungarvan that we have today is researched by Willie Frere. Sometimes I repackage it and represent it, but the actual hard work is done by Willie. And Willie then researched Brennan, and for quite a period of time he was kind of a little bit of a secret to all us historians. with the advent of the internet and Facebook and social media, we tried to push the story out there. And about 2 years ago, when the council very kindly asked us to contribute to the redesign of Grattan Square, we got the opportunity to put 32 plaques all around the square. And one of the plaques that we decided quite quickly we wanted to do was to commemorate Brennan. And you can see it there today. The plaque to the left actually is interesting, and we'll start the Brennan story. There's a picture of a mammoth on the ground, if any of you have seen it. So Brennan was quite an amazing individual, but he came from a family of amazing individuals. His father was an amateur historian and archaeologist, and the first mammoth found in Southern Ireland was found out in Shandon marked by him, and he wrote quite a lot of papers for very academic journals. So Brennan took over the postmaster's business, and he moved it from that side of the square to here. He was a bit of an entrepreneur, so he opened up a print works and a bookbinding place as well. And if that wasn't enough, he headed off to Rome to fight in the papal armies against Garibaldi. 1,400 Irishmen headed out to Rome to fight Garibaldi. It's an episode that's kind of forgotten now because basically they lost. So if you go out to Italy, you'll see statues of Garibaldi in every small town and no statue of Brennan. So the moral there is don't lose a war or you won't be remembered. He came back from that and he immersed himself into the life of the town. He was a town commissioner, he was a receiving officer, which is basically a social welfare officer as we call it today. He proposed things like the Dungarvan tramway. There was originally going to be a tram in Dungarvan. It wasn't going to be the longest tramway, I imagine, on earth, but it never got off the ground. So he's quite an innovative individual. And of course, why we are here today is because of the cycle race that he started. Nowadays, if we want to find information, we Google it and we pull it off the internet. Back then, it was a much more laborious process. We don't know how Brennan happened on cycling, but he did very, very, very quickly and immersed himself in it. And as a result of which, we're fortunate to have, as I said, the first cycle race in Britain or Ireland happened here, the first Irish cycling club at the very least, and also the first documented Irish cycling holiday, because he took holidays up to Cork and he wrote about them. So the first cycling holiday in Ireland was also held in the Dungarvan area, which is a nice tie-in with the Greenway, which has transformed the town. The other thing that's interesting about Brennan is I think he knew how important he was. Because there was a lovely piece in Travel Guide from 1903 where Brennan waylays the author, the journalist writing the travel guide, and he brings him into the back of the post office and he says, "You've got to see this most important trophy." And the trophy was the cup. And the reporter said that he guards it as if it is a collar of the most priceless gold. So that's in around 1903 that happened. So Brennan was reasonably well aware of the significance of what he did. Having said all of that, I think even he would have been astonished with the Greenway and how Dungarvan has become like little Beijing, the cycling capital of Ireland. It's absolutely amazing. I think he would have been thrilled with it. And just to sum up at the end then, from the point of view of the museum, our local history is way, way too important to leave it to the likes of me and Willie Frere and people who kind of go into darkened rooms and kind of read books that no one else wants to read. We're absolutely delighted that the cycling club has taken ownership of their history and got involved in the history of their town. And I think there's a reason that Dungarvan is thriving, and that's because people care about where they live and they want to make it a better place. So congratulations to the cycling club and everyone on this. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Willie, for those very insightful words on Richard Brennan. And we're very delighted that Cycling Ireland have come down, both Kieran McKenna and Matt McCarroll, the President and the CEO of Cycling Ireland, are down to recognise Dungarvan as the official home of Irish cycling.
I won't even argue. I suppose thanks to Mike and the club for asking me down. Mike gave me a phone call about 6 months ago and asked me to come down here today, and not only did he ask me 6 months ago, he rang me up every month within that 6 months, make sure I was still coming down, so absolutely delighted. Out for a spin with the club today. Over the years, I've got many hiding from cyclists from Dungarvan, and happened again today. So history repeats itself. I suppose when you look at the history of this club, it's 150 years old. It was 9 years later before the first NGB, the Cycling Federation, should we say, was formed, and even at that. So that was 9 years after this club was formed, and 6 years after that, the GAA was formed. So you can imagine how far, should we say, the club and which way they were thinking back then, how important it was. So when you look at what it is today, Dungarvan, they have 170 cyclists. Within Cycling Ireland ourselves, Dungarvan would be classed as one of the better clubs, and the reason why it's one of the better clubs is because of the membership and the officers within it, the likes of Mike and all the lads. They put a huge effort into it. So you can see over the years we've had, Dungarvan has probably had some of the better cyclists, Robert Power, Stephen Spratt, and I see an ex-president of Cycling Ireland here, Rory Wiley, just literally around the corner there. So over the years, Dungarvan has produced some of the best cyclists in the country. You can see why, because of what the club is doing today and what the club has been doing literally over the last 150 years. So I certainly like to congratulate them all and thank them for today, and hopefully over the next couple of hours we'll have another few drinks and food and whatever the case may be, and hopefully over the next month or two the club will continue to commemorate this occasion. So well done to all. Thanks very much.
I think that's it. Thank you all very much for coming and being part of the ceremony, and we look forward to seeing you later on. We just want to get a few photographs now.